Om Maganatimarandasyam Ganagana Salakya Chaksurun Miritam Yana Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamaram Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagaritam Sahagana Raganatim Bitam Stam Sajevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakanvitam Stam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surito Pango Mama Miner Vitergati Matsavasha Parambo Jo Radha Namadana Mohanam Siman Rasa Rasaram Bivam Sivada Karshan Penushan Urpika Gopinatas Jesam Divyad Brindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Shima Shanishto Shri Siddhara Shira Govinda Deva Prastadabhihi Sravanishmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanyataya Chajigaritaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Radvaja Mangalam Padidikaksho Mangalayatano Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Chavidnahi Vishnu Padita Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastuvyam Sare Sari Hari Priya Namastuvyam Dayadide Tanta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishavana Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Subham Karoti Kayaram Rogam Dana Satimburi Vinashana Deepa Jyoti Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishavana Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pasaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesa Sunivari Praskadadi Sana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Brent. Welcome back from Bolivia. He was here last night, telling some stories about his recent trip there on a humanitarian mission with some associates in his group. And John, thank you for joining us, John Malik. And on Zoom, Rob Prabhu, having just returned from Las Vegas, an Amway business convention down there. As you might have noted from my Facebook post, we had a busy weekend. My Bobby had up to 100 volunteers here on Saturday doing all kinds of things with the llamas, the landscaping. That gate that many of you donated for on the occasion of my birthday last October is almost finished. Took a few months for fabrication in China and then a couple of months for transport across the ocean. And then we hired a fellow, Dylan, at $25 an hour, contractor, to put it in place and build the pillars and hang it. The last stage is doing the electrical so that from the top of the hill at night, when the temple closes, we can just hit the remote control and the gate will close and keep everything safe and secure from mischief mongers when there's nobody personally present on the grounds itself. So thank you, everybody, for having pitched in for that. Normally, something like this would have cost $15,000, but we got the gate for $5,000. And for just a couple $1,000s, we're doing a DIY, a do-it-yourself, more or less, whereby it's going to be fully operative for well under $10,000, probably more, about $7,000. So saved about half of the normal cost for a gate like this. And it's a beautiful gate. I may have mentioned before, I found myself in Highland, which is the most exclusive area of Utah County. There are many, many multi-millionaires who live in Highland, big mansions, lots of surrounding grounds. Every one of them has an wrought iron gate similar to ours, but I didn't actually see any design which was as attractive or comely or any installation which was as impressive as Krishna's gate here in Spanish Fork, Utah. So we're excited for those of you who donated to visit and see the fruit of your donations. As soon as everything's completed and all the different bits and pieces are cleaned up, we will post some pictures of that beautiful gate for the satisfaction of all those who made it happen. In any case, Vaibhavi had 100 volunteers here over the weekend doing various projects. The weather has finally warmed up after all these months. Our fish go to sleep when it gets cold in October, and they wake up when the weather becomes consistently warmer. And now they're awake, they're swimming around, and they're hungry as well. The birds, for the first time in months and months and months, are enjoying days in the aviary, the beautiful sound of the waterfall and the fountain nearby, and other birds chirping to keep them company. They're visibly upbeat, more so now than after all those months inside. The tourists are coming like anything. We've had some crazy days, not only during the weekend, but during the week as well. And as Bobby had a busy Saturday, I also had a busy Saturday. I started out with a prearranged, it had been scheduled for the Wasatch Photographers Club or group to come and take pictures of our temple and grounds last Saturday, April 15th. And they started showing up about 7:30. By 8 o'clock or 8:10, they were 20 or so members here. I gave them a tour, which ended up being better part of an hour. They had a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries. They were snapping pictures during the tour. It was a very good tour, actually, one of the best tours I've ever given. A lot of give and take. Very inquisitive group of people. After which they fanned out all over the property, some of them indoors, some of them outdoors, snapping lots of pictures. We're starting to get some emails, appreciative emails from those members with links to where we can download some of those pictures and use them for our own purposes. And first couple of galleries I'm seeing are really, really good, really, really good. After which time I had to go to Salt Lake City. There was a Ruiz Patel wedding in the Gallivan Hall right downtown in the Gallivan Center complex there, scheduled to do the wedding from 1:15 to 2:30. It was a mixed crowd. Of course, Ruiz is a Western crowd and Patel is an Indian crowd. So that went off well. I did kind of confuse the father of the bride and the father of the groom a couple of times. I called the father of the groom up to give away the bride, which was kind of funny. Got halfway through the process of Kanyadan and realized I had the wrong guy up there, so I had to switch. But it was all in good fun. It was a fun, happy event, beautiful couple. Priyam married Nate. Then it was time to shoot over to the Salt Lake City Temple, give the Bhagavatam class from 6:30 to 7. 15-minute beautiful kirtan by Divyam, Krishna Goal, and then the motivational talk at the Salt Lake City Saturday feast, which was entitled Your Good Seed. I mentioned in my Facebook post that I think I went through a whole bag of throat lozenges. And on Facebook, that sparked a whole discussion on which are the best throat lozenges, with people voting for this, that, and the other fishermen, and this and that and the other thing, all claiming them to be superior to my brand, which I think is called ricotta, made with molasses and natural ingredients. I quite like it. In fact, I think I'm going to grab one right now. Reminds me. I put an episode number on this segment today as 23. I have no idea how many times we've revisited the pastimes of Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni, but it's definitely a record. We've definitely not revisited any single pastime as often as we have here. Our concluding theme in all of this is that no one can be happy without a pure heart. There are two benefits of purifying your heart. Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Babada Bhagnanapam Shreyam Kaivada Chandikam Vidyavadaji Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Purnamridasharam Sharvat Mashnapanam Padam Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Chanting the holy names cleanses the heart, extinguishes the flames, breaks the chains, blesses the earth at large. With moonlight rays discharging waves of nectar our sense has been craving since ancient days. It is only through purity of heart that we get in touch with our pure spiritual selves and that pure supreme personality of Godhead, who is our source, who is our creator and our loving Father. Only when the heart is pure and free of dirts and obstacles can we be happy. Only when you live a hygienic life, washing your hands, eating pure foods, thinking pure thoughts, only when you rid yourself of contaminants and toxins will you experience a higher level quality of life. So in the same way, when your heart is purified, Shrinvatam, Shrakata Krishna, there's no more powerful cleansing agent than the kata, the subject matters of name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. These rid the heart of anything which is antithetical to devotional service. It removes the obstacles to pure, unadulterated, euphoric, eternal, ever-increasing, blissful life. We're not these bodies, we're spirit soul. Spirit souls by nature happy, but we're tiny souls, we're infinitesimal. Therefore, that tiny soul can become overcome by the darkness, by the inertia, by the depression, by the defeatism, which is inbuilt within the material energy. So the key is to accept the culture of knowledge. Culture, Prabhupada didn't seem to have any scruples about referring to the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the cult. Nowadays, it's given negative connotations, but cult comes from culture, and culture refers to a proactive lifestyle by which you avoid depression, you avoid darkness, you avoid laziness, you avoid ignorance, you avoid madness, you avoid illusion by always moving forward. You will avoid darkness if you follow the sun. If you continually follow the sun, you'll avoid darkness. Those of us who have taken transcontinental plane trips know that you can literally have a 24-hour day if you're traveling at the right speed in the right direction pursuing the sun. You'll avoid an entire nighttime by traveling towards the sun. In the same way, the key to happiness, the key to purity, the key to uncovering and staying in touch with our own eternal blissful self is always moving, never slowing, never straggling, never struggling, always keeping up the pace and proactively cultivating, from which the word cult comes, cultivating transcendental knowledge. That's why after the verse where Lord Chaitanya says that chanting the holy names is a cleansing agent for the heart, after that, the second verse is Nam Namarikara Bahodani Jashabhishisha Tapitani Mateshmarane Etadushi Tava Kripa Babhanam Durdavmi Dishami Jani Naragam. After establishing the potency, chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So far, cleansing the heart is concerned. Then Lord Chaitanya, in the second verse of his Shiksha Shaksham, stresses how you have to do it regularly. It's not that you take one shower a year. Man, you smell and you look bad. You should take a shower. Well, I took a shower on 1st of January. Why should I take another shower? You have to take a shower the 1st of January, the 2nd of January, 3rd, 15th of April, 16th of April, 17th of April. Why? Because the atmosphere itself is dirty. The world that we live in has all kinds of pollutants and contaminants in it. You can't go 24 hours without picking up all kinds of dirt, not only physically, but mentally as well. Facebook, Twitter, the news, Fox News, CNN, all the doom and gloom, dire predictions, wars that are going on, gang addictions. Nothing in there is going to make a good day for us. We have to be proactive and we have to be consistent, just like we have to consistently shower, consistently wash our hands to create a buffer between us and the dirt and the consequent depression. In the same way, for mental purity and spiritual purity, we have to consistently chant the names of the Lord on a regular daily basis. Shin Vatam, Shrakata Krishna Punya Sravanam Kirtanam. This will take us from the darkness to the light. It'll take us from dirtiness to cleanliness. It'll take us from impiety to piety. Why is it? Why is it that the chanting of the holy names can have such a profound effect? Is it not external, an external process? Even if we are spirit souls, we're chanting with the tongue and hearing with the ears, which are external senses. But the answer to the question is, how is it that the chanting of Hare Krishna can be so powerful and potent? The answer is that Krishna himself, Sarvasya Chaham Ridi Shanavishto, is living within the heart of the living entity. He occupies a position in our heart. And when he sees that we're conscientious and diligent and regular and consistent in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, he works personally from within the heart to remove darkness and dirtiness and unwanted things. Krishna takes the responsibility towards his aspiring devotee to elevate that devotee to a platform of spiritual maturity, to grow that devotee up and build his character and to qualify that devotee, to make that devotee eligible to go back home, back to God. Spiritual maturity translates in the following way. A spiritually mature person is continually conscious of Krishna's presence, just like Ambarish. He took everything as the mercy of Krishna. How often, when we're treated unfairly, when we get something we don't feel that we deserved, do we then start the blame game? Blame is be lame. We blame the person who is conspiring against us. We blame the circumstances. We blame ultimately God. God, why have you allowed this to happen? But the vision of the pure devotee, the spiritually mature person, is they are conscious of Krishna's presence in all things. Never mind it's unfair. Never mind we didn't deserve it. Never mind that the reaction seems to be far greater than the offense that we committed. Never mind any of those things. You know, we tend to be able to deal with a negative circumstance. We tend to be able to deal with a reaction if we feel we were out of line, we did make a mistake, we said something or did something we should have, and we feel like we're getting our just desserts. Most of us can handle that. Most of us can swallow our pride and admit that we made a mistake and we're getting the blowback from that mistake. But it's much more difficult when something unfair is done to you, something that you don't feel that you deserved, or even worse yet, for no offense whatsoever, someone has taken offense and now they're mounting a whole campaign against you. You did nothing. You have no ill will to them. You said nothing bad about them. You didn't even think bad about them, but yet somehow they're all off in a campaign against you. Now that's a situation that's much more difficult to deal with, to compute. It's much more difficult to remain cool and calm when you feel like you're the victim of an unfair slander campaign. You feel like you did nothing against that person, and yet that person has marshaled all of their resources and called in all of their favors and all their friends to try to put you down, to try to demean you, to try to get even with you for an offense that you never even committed in the first place. Consider, Maharaj Ambarish had taken a vow of Ekadasi for 1 year. He'd fasted for 1 year. And it was within a few seconds of the time when, in order to reap the benefits of the vow is not just the fasting, but the vow involves breaking the fast just at the right moment. And that moment was fast approaching. As Maharaj Ambarish was preparing himself to complete the vow by taking a little morsel of food, he got a titi. He got an uninvited, unexpected guest. That guest was Durvasa Muni. Now, Durvasa Muni was hungry. He wanted something to eat. And Maharaj Ambarish immediately made the adjustment in his consciousness that I will give the food that has been prepared for me, no matter how hungry I am. I haven't eaten in a year. Doesn't matter. I'm going to give up this food to my guest. It will give me more pleasure to feed this guest and to satisfy this uninvited guest than it would be for me to eat something myself. But the problem is, it wasn't about him. It wasn't about his hunger, his appetite, his longing, his concern. It was about completing the vow in which he'd already invested a year. So he had to eat and not eat, some or other. When a guest comes, you don't eat, even if you're ready to eat. If you've sat down at the table and you've said grace and you've picked up your fork or you've broken a piece of chapati, you get that knock on the door and the guest comes, you immediately offer that food to the guest. You serve the guest. I've been to many homes where the Indian people refuse to sit. I tell them, please sit, eat with me. They won't do it. They won't do it. They insist on remaining standing so that so when I finish one preparation, they come with a little spoon and say more. I finish one chapati and they bring me another chapati. They're not satisfied to put a stack of chapatis on the table and just take off the top. They want to give you hot chapatis. And when you finish one chapati, they've been standing at the stove and they're immediately heating up the next chapati and they're bringing you with the tongs a hot chapati, feeding you hot chapatis as soon as you finish the previous one. So you'll be sitting there feeling embarrassed that you're the only one eating. 2 or 3 of the family members, the father, the mother-in-law, will refuse to sit down with you. They're giving you hot chapatis, serving more things. Maharaj Ambarish was okay with all of that. He was okay with foregoing his own sense gratification in order to receive this uninvited, unexpected guest. But how to complete the vow? That was the issue which had been created by the arrival of Durvasa Muni. And so he consulted. He didn't go on the basis of his own feelings or his own sentiment. He consulted the Brahmins around him. Said, what can I do in this tricky situation between a rock and a hard spot? The Brahmins told him that if you sip a little water, that will qualify as breaking the fast and not breaking the fast. Just sip a little water while your guest is off washing himself and cleansing himself from his journey and preparing to come back for the lunch. This humility of Maharaj Ambarish and this level of discipline and self-control is typical of a spiritually mature person. A spiritually mature person is continually conscious of Krishna's presence, that nothing happens to me, everything happens for me. Even if it seems meant for my harm, Krishna has a purpose for it. If I keep cool and calm, level-headed, avail myself of the advice of my superiors, sagacious Brahmins, then I will come out of this situation. I will go through this challenge, through this dark valley, and come out the other side better off than I was before. So this is the consciousness of pure devotees, seeing Krishna's hand in everything. And beyond that, being content with Krishna's praise. One needn't attract praise for oneself. One is content praising Krishna. We are not the enjoyer. We are meant to be the enjoyed. We are not the lords. We are the servants. We are meant to give praise to Krishna. We are the parts and not the whole. The part will achieve happiness, satisfaction, only by doing its role in serving the whole. Maharaj Ambarish was completely happy serving Krishna. No doubt he had people singing his praises. No doubt he had his sycophants. No doubt he had yes men, as all people of influence do. But he did not allow any of that to go to his head. He was fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. He was fixed in the practice of glorifying the Lord. Day and night, night and day, by constant recitation, chant the Lord's name without hesitation, free from temptation, with the sensation of feeling oneself lower in the straw in the street, more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige. Humility is the key to enjoy the vibration eternally. And with humility, with deep humility, without a sense of himself, without any swell-headedness or arrogance or pretensions whatsoever, Maharaj Ambarish viewed himself as an atom at the lotus feet of Krishna. So as well as being conscious of Krishna's presence in all circumstances, as well as being content with Krishna's praise, the mature spiritualist is controlled by Krishna's priorities. One may have many duties as a spouse, as a king, as a leader, as a business zion, as a parent. But overriding all of those responsibilities, all those duties, at the top of one's to-do list is to honor the Supreme Personality of God. Your duties as a spouse and as a father, as a business owner, as a citizen, may not be contradictory to your duties as Krishna. In most cases, we can execute our mundane duties in such a way that they honor God. So the two needn't be mutually exclusive, but occasionally it happens, as it did with Arjuna in the Battle of Kurukshetra, that he was called to make a choice between his conditional duties and his constitutional duties, between his functional duties having to do with this body and the relatives and friends and temporary situation, and his foundational duties, which are as a servant of Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kavanai Shravanadi Sudachiti Kaurihuda. When everything else is taken away, when we are facing the final transition of death, and our spouse can no longer help us, our children can no longer help us, our country can no longer help us, and we have to leave all those behind, we have to be content with the service of Krishna. We have to be content with the priority of life, which is to always remember Krishna at the time of death. Tajmad sarvashu kalashu ma manushmara yodhita mayapato manovasasi samsa. Krishna says to Arjuna, the success of life, the mature practitioner knows how to navigate one's duties, navigate the shifting waters of life, and at the same time, always remember Krishna. Imagine Arjuna, the pressure he was under to fight a battle, to combat the Kauravas. Arjuna is the point man. Arjuna is the champion of all righteousness. He has the most prowess of any of the Pandava brothers. Everybody on the Kaurava side knows that if they conquer Arjuna, if Arjuna hits the dust, the battle's over. Their priority is to hit Arjuna with as many lethal weapons as possible and bring him down into the dust. Fighting and killing Arjuna is prioritized by all of the Kauravas. They know that there's nothing more effective they can do to win the war than to bring down Arjuna. They could kill any and all of the other Pandavas, but as long as Arjuna is left standing, cause of righteousness has hope. It has a chance. And all of that, imagine Arjuna having to counteract javelins and shields and arrows, all kinds of weapons conjured up by mantra. And in all of that, Krishna says, Tajmad Sarvashu Yudhisha, in all circumstances, at all times, remember me. That's the challenge, to do your duty diligently, faultlessly. Let no one be able to find fault with the way that you execute your material conditional, functional duties, at the same time prioritizing your constitutional, spiritual, and foundational duties of serving Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhava Karina Shravanadi Sudhi Jiti Karyoda. The more mature you are, the more you are going to be successful in transferring your devotion away from temporary things to the lotus feet of the Lord. To do this, you need to progressively and diligently keep the process of cleaning your consciousness as an ongoing one. When your consciousness is clean, your thoughts will be clean. When your thoughts are clean, your words will be clean. When your words are clean, your actions will be clean. When your actions are clean, your character is built up. And when your character is built up, you will be a man or a woman of destiny. You will make a difference in your family, in your company, in your generation. Everything begins with the mind. Everything begins in your thinking. You can't think negative and have a positive result. You can't think defeat and have victory. You can't think weak and strong. You can't think under and go over. You can't survive and at the same time thrive. And so when our thinking is fixed, when our internal systems are fixed, that's when we can make a profound and dramatic difference externally. Maharaj Ambarish did not rant and rail. He did not resort to feelings of bitterness or resentment. He didn't claim special preference because he was being treated unfairly. He knew he had not committed any offense to Durvasa Muni. Nobody knew better than Ambarish that in the core of his heart, he had profound respect for Durvasa Muni. The last thing in the world he wanted to do was to offend Durvasa Muni. He bent over backwards. We have a car dealer in Utah Valley and up in Salt Lake Valley. His name is Brent something. He's one of the biggest car dealers. He has dealerships all over. And there's a picture of him in all the billboards. And he's bending backwards. It's actually unnatural how far backwards he's bending. You wonder, he must have a double jointed vertebrae or something in order to do this, or else he's just been photoshopped. But his motto, for as long as I've been here, for 40 years, is Brent and his employees will bend over backwards to get you into the car that you want. Maharaj Ambarish knows without a shadow of a doubt he has bent over backwards. He has done everything that he humanly could, including even taking advice as to what to do from the Brahmins to honor and respect Durvasa. There was no fault on his part. The fact that Durvasa overreacted, imagine that Ambarish was disrespectful. Durvasa started calling him all kinds of names, swearing and heaping abuse on this faultless devotee of the Lord, calling him a cheater, a pretender, envious person. Those adjectives could have much more appropriately been applied to Durvasa Muni than to Ambarish Maharaj. How difficult, as I mentioned, it is that when you are not at fault, not even in your thoughts, someone imagines and tries to demean you, to slander you, to divest you of the things that you've worked for no reason or no cause whatsoever. How difficult it would be to maintain your poise, your peace, your calm, and your equanimity. And yet Durvasa Muni was unable to affect in the slightest bit the consciousness of Maharaj Ambarish. You know, many times we feel peaceful, we feel calm, we feel situated in devotional service and transcendence. But someone comes up to you and they're just waves of animosity, waves of disrespect, waves of hate are just rolling off of them. You can almost feel it. It's hard to maintain your equanimity when there's that level of aggression against you. It's almost as if it their aggression is like pulling aggression out of you. Everybody's experiences. 1 minute you're calm, you're peaceful, and you're mode of goodness. And the next minute you're sucked into the mode of passion. It's almost like that person is sucking you along with them. So it requires a high level of self-possession, a high level of fixity, stability, the lotus feet of Krishna. We can imagine an atom at the lotus feet is not going to be dislodged. An atom has tucked itself in there, the lotus feet. It's nestled, snuggled, hidden, protected, insulated by so many other atoms. Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness so we get strength from each other's numbers. Separately, individually, we can be affected. We can fall down. But if you just get yourself in there as one amongst many atoms at the lotus feet of Krishna, you're going to be safe. You're going to be safe. Just think of Krishna. Think of all your God brothers. Think of the worldwide society. Think of all the people that are chanting Hare Krishna, have dedicated their lives for Krishna, and one negative person, one critic, one backstabber, one doomsayer is not going to affect you. No matter how aggressive they are, they may be spewing invective. There may be spittle coming from their mouth. You may feel the moisture on your face. They may be 2 inches from you. Their fists may be clenched, their eyes red, their teeth showing. They may be snarling out their words. They're devotees. Because after all, devotee is preparing for death. There's nothing more traumatic. There's nothing more, no one more aggressive than death himself. Dhirashtata namoyate. A spiritually mature person is not affected, is not distressed or traumatized, even at the very hour of death. I remember hearing, I think it was the only lecture I ever heard Jayananda Prabhu give. This would have been back in 1975 at the Berkeley Temple. At that time, the neighbors were complaining about the noise from Mangal Arti. And eventually we soundproofed and we stopped using mridangas and we just had little ching-ching kartals. We adjusted. But at that time, they did have a pretty boisterous Mangal Arti, and the neighbors were starting to complain. Jayananda made this point that if you're disturbed by a little spiritual religious music in the pre-dawn hours up the block or coming from the temple in your neighborhood, then how are you going to remain cool and calm at the time of death? If little things disturb you, if little things upend you and upset you, then what happens when the big thing comes? What happens when death comes? Sakrin mana Krishna parara vivasham shabekana kanam. Sakrin mana Krishna parara vindavakam. Samshi vaikuna gunanananam. It is stated in the 3rd canto that those whose minds have taken shelter as an atom in the lotus feet of Krishna cannot be disturbed by any external circumstances, by any aggressor, no matter how threatening or how looming or how imminent that aggressor may be, no matter how unfair the situation may be, no matter how much the aggressor has overreacted to an imagined fault on your part. It is said that one who is situated as an atom in the lotus feet of Krishna cannot be dislodged, cannot be disturbed. It is said, Sakrin mana Krishna para by Shamchi Karohoro Mandira Mara Pashan Mapina Pashati. Such a person does not see Yamaraj, does not see the agents of Yamaraj even in their dreams. Yamaraj himself, the Lord who takes away everybody at the time of death, who traumatizes everybody, in fear of whom? Marto mitu viala karir lokam sabyom yarom tapajam yarom shustushte temiri turishmadapayati. There's one characteristic of this material world. Among all the residents, inhabitants of this material world, if there's one characteristic, they're terrified of death. They're terrified of that moment when death comes to rip them out of their body unceremoniously and take them to who knows where. Everyone is terrified of death. They live in denial of death. They live in fear of death, some or other knowing on one level that death will rip everything away from them. And yet those who have taken shelter as atoms in the lotus feet of the Lord amongst the other atomic devotees and are engaged in devotional service, daily purifying, daily cleansing, daily serving, daily moving forward in the service of the Lord, it says they are sleeping in full mental peace. They do not see Yamaraj. They do not see the servants of Yamaraj even in their dreams. They and they alone. Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Taivishanka Mukti Siddhi Bhukti Siddhi Shakali Ashanta. Anyone else without devotional service of the Lord, without the protection of the Lord within the heart and the protection of the society of devotees, is disturbed under extreme circumstances. They do not know what it is to have shanti, peace. Even when the circumstances are peaceful, the non-God-centered people find their minds and senses and emotions disturbed in so many ways, just like a boat with no anchor, no fixity. Any breeze can blow the boat this direction, another breeze will blow the boat direction. Savai harati pum. However the breeze blows, the boat will go in that direction, be pushed willy-nilly in this or that direction. Those whose consciousness is fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord are not disturbed under the most provocative of circumstances. They have got the Lord firmly established within their hearts. They have got that purity of vision, that purity of motive, which they're consciously aware of the Lord within their heart. They're content with the constant praise of the Lord. They're not concerned about what other people are thinking about them or what other people are imagining them. They are content with Krishna's praise, and they are controlled by Krishna's priorities. This is what it means to grow up in the service of the Lord. This is what it means to be nurtured, to be molded and formed by the Lord who loves you, who created you, who is your benevolent Father, and who is situated right within the core of your heart. This is the Krishna conscious process. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Love it, Anjali. She quoted me, you may feel the spittle off their mouth. And yet the devotee is only thinking of ching, 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 the beautiful sound of the kartals. Shali, also from Ephraim, she says she says she gets a lot from these lessons. She's praising me. Jai. And who else do we have? Hayashva, my old friend Hayash. I haven't seen him for years, but glad that you joined up, Jai, that you jumped in. John Malik says, make every day an adventure. Bhakti Gary checking in. Jean, Rakesh, Raghav, Brent Spencer, John Malik by Bobby, also there too. Some takeaways for us, Rob, are you there? Rob did say he was exhausted, got back late last night from Las Vegas, so I'm not sure if he's front and center or not. Any case, this has been Motivational Monday, so appreciative of you joining me here to begin this week. I'll be going to Ogden to put up some posters and flyers later on this afternoon, and I'll be there tomorrow, but I do believe that if the internet connection is adequate, I'll be able to give Tuesday, Transcendental Tuesday tomorrow, same time, same station. So I'll look forward to joining you again. In the meantime, have a Krishna conscious day, and don't forget your regular practice of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.